All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat, and today we are going to be talking about our thoughts on the E3 Square-Enix presentation for 2021. I am joined by my co-hosts Eric and Stan, as well as our good friend Hian, who got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to have this conversation. So I'm recording this after we had the conversation because I just want you to know that we streamed the entire Square-Enix event, and then we led that right into a post-presentation conversation. So if there is any new information that comes out afterwards, we'll try to update it in future episodes, but this is directly after the presentation, so keep that in mind. Now, if you missed the event itself, there were some announcements there that were kind of cool, but for the most part, the general temperature in the room was that people were not really happy about it. There was no Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff there. New stuff anyways. There wasn't Final Fantasy 16 content. There wasn't anything in that regard. There was no Kingdom Hearts. There was nothing of that sort. We didn't really learn much about that. So that was a little disappointing, but we did get some Final Fantasy 1 through 6 remakes. Not really. Well, they're kind of remakes. They're new pixel art graphics, but we've seen this before, and these games are coming to mobile and Steam. We have yet to see the Final Fantasy 5 and 6 artwork in full, so we still will reserve judgment on that, but it looks good, but it's coming to Steam and mobile only, so people are not too happy about it. There's also some Brave Exvius DLC or new content rather, and it's on Final Fantasy 1 crossover. We have had that before in the past, but we've gotten more Final Fantasy 1 crossover with Brave Exvius, which is kind of cool. And then to wrap things up with Final Fantasy content anyways, we had a remake of Final Fantasy 1, kind of. It's more of a reimagining, but it's called Final Fantasy Origins, and it's actually being created or worked on by Team Ninja, who Square Enix actually sought out. Now, if you're not familiar with Team Ninja, they are the developers behind the Neo series. So they're very well known for making great action combat systems, and so this is basically their version of Final Fantasy. It is a lot different. It's not the typical JRPG Final Fantasy that you would imagine, but we do see some cool stuff with the new Light Warriors combating Garland, and it's kind of an interesting take on this world, and it's actually kind of cool. It's not, we do have some problems with it, but we'll get into that. You'll have to hear the discussion on that for us to kind of dissect that a little bit. But overall, we like the combat. We thought it looked good. We like the aesthetic, so I think you'll enjoy the conversation for that regard. Now, there wasn't a lot of other stuff there for us to talk about, so we focused mostly on those items. We did express some disinterest with the fact that Square Enix spent so much time on their more Western side things and not enough time on this JRPG side. Given they have announced Final Fantasy 16, they've announced 7 Remake Part 2, there's games that they can port that would be easy, low-hanging fruit. So we were overall very, very disappointed with this presentation. But it did lead us into some more 7 Remake conversations about Ever Crisis and First Soldier and things of that regard that you might enjoy as well. So just wanted to give you guys a rundown of what we're talking about because we do kind of jump all over the place. So hopefully this will help you keep up if you did not watch the presentation and enjoy the conversation.
I guess Strangers of Paradise was their last big thing they wanted to go off on.
They're going to get hammered online for this, like not showing any FF16, no FF7 Remake Part 2, nothing Kingdom Hearts related. You know, the big things that people tune in to an E3 conference for, you know. I guess the Final Fantasy Origin, they are hoping that is enough to kind of keep people satisfied for now, but I don't know if that's enough.
I feel as if that could have been so much more because they obviously had a lot of like big names working on it. So I'm just so surprised that it looked that underwhelming, right? Where you could have, as I said, like they have these like kind of cheap knockoff Nomura characters. They look like characters that he sketched in 5 minutes, and then he had them in a closet somewhere, and then they came to him like, Nomura, give us some characters, and he's like,
what I think?
Like, just get lost, right?
The other thing what's up with Nomura now, I think he's built a program where he has like random assets that he always puts in, and he hits the randomizer on 3 characters, and he's like, done. There you go.
Done. Yeah, here you go. All right.
And they don't look like anything from Final Fantasy 1 at all. Garland does. Garland looks almost like completely faithful to FF1. Then you got these guys that look like they're like custom made characters from that FF15 online thing.
Yeah.
Like coming in. And like, can you make interesting looking characters, please?
But maybe that's the thing, right? Like maybe because Final Fantasy 1 is one of those games where the main characters don't really matter, right? So maybe the reason they look that way is because you can basically kind of make your own character or customize their appearance or something like that. Because there is no character, like main character in Final Fantasy 1, right? The hero light motif thing is just, that's just Amano's cover art, right? It has nothing to do with like the actual game.
Yeah, but I would still like it if they made something that let you know this is a warrior, this is a white mage, this is a black mage, this is a thief, this is a monk. It's like these characters don't distinguish any of these features.
And they have really like kind of boring outfits as well, right? Nothing that really popped at all, except like the purple hair of the one guy, right? The Prompto knockoff.
Yeah, so that's the biggest takeaway I have from the Final Fantasy Origin is I thought the aesthetic looked great. It's just the character models were terrible looking, and this is something I brought up when we talked about the rumor that Team Ninja was working with Square-Enix. I was wanting to know who was the blood from Final Fantasy, like who was the Square-Enix people that were working on this, because otherwise it would just be like this like Team Ninja project that said Final Fantasy, but it said like there were some Final Fantasy big names associated with it, but like you guys are mentioning, it doesn't feel like they like maybe their names on there just as like a a casual oversight and not really deeply involved. But I thought the combat looked good, and like the Garland character model looked good, but the freaking side quest NPCs as main hero, that didn't look very good. But it is coming out in 2022, and there's a demo, so maybe they can kind of fix that a little bit.
Shed some light on that.
Yeah,
it could be. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna agree. The main character with like a big broadsword, almost Buster Sword like on his back, and he's wielding that around, but he's not wearing any kind of armor. He's got like a button-up t-shirt and jeans. And in this kind of dark castle that they seem to be invading, Garland's castle, it just seems very out of place.
Well, and Warriors of Light, there's supposed to be 4 warriors. So, and there's
we only saw 3.
So maybe there's another reveal, or or is it just 3 now? Because that's a weird decision. If you're going to do more than 1, why not have 4?
That could be like a way, because they have to kind of create a story for the game now. So if you can like theory craft this, maybe they've done it like 3 of those 3 go to the castle first or something, and maybe they all fall and die. That's what they're not like important characters, and then you play us afterwards as like Warrior of the Light, right? The actual protagonist or something like that, right?
Yeah.
These are like the 3 disposable stooges that you just use for the intro sequence, and then you get to play as the actual kind of Warrior of Light afterwards.
Yeah,
could be.
He's like the fourth Warrior of Light, right? He has to like save everyone and fix everything.
They're all fully voice acted too, so obviously they're gonna have some personality.
Yeah, it's written by Nojima, right, and character designed by
Tetsuya Nomura. Yeah.
Yeah. We got some comments from our live stream viewers. I asked them what they think. We got total disappointment, very underwhelming. I would have been fine if they just show the Endwalker trailer again, honestly. And half the presentation on Guardians of the Galaxy, shaking my head.
Yeah, and then they ended the presentation with a final like little humorous scene from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like if we didn't get enough, I also need him to see him kissing an octopus arm. Just a salt in the wound. Oh yeah, this game again.
Pre-order now.
I feel like I played the whole game. So
I'm just wondering if we play between these 3, or they have their
this own
unique style. I mean, I like the game.
The combat looks good.
fine.
Like the gameplay looks fine, right?
Yeah, it's
So
Like, I'm legitimately going to buy this. I'm serious. I'm going to check it out. I'm with you guys.
I don't know if I'm gonna buy it, but yeah, I need to see more of it before I make that decision. But
That throne
I
looks
do
awesome.
definitely see it. The Team Ninja aspect of it, the gameplay does remind me of Neo a lot.
Yeah, which then that's what apparently you know, that's the reason they were brought on board for this. So go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was
going to say, like, apparently the vision for this was they wanted, good combat. They wanted experienced people that are proven to be successful with quality combat systems, but they wanted it to be a little bit more accessible than the Neo games because those games are not everyone's cup of tea. So,
sure.
I mean, this basically looks like, I'm surprised, like the rumors that came out about this, it's almost completely 100% exactly what it said. They said it wasn't going to be completely AAA, like it wasn't going to be Final Fantasy 7 remake or 16 AAA, but it's going to be a little bit below that. I mean, this is basically exactly what the rumors said, which is crazy to me.
Oh, this end card here said PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X, and
did it?
S. Yeah, I missed that.
The demo is only on PlayStation 5.
Yeah, but it looks like it's going to be a current gen or
game.
Yeah, because it didn't look like a PS5 exclusive.
It didn't look very impressive graphically, so.
But only PS5's getting the demo.
Yeah.
I want to know what Square Enix's end game here is, because a lot of people don't own a PS5, and they're like, Capcom did this too with like Resident Evil Village. It's like PS5 exclusive demo. It's like most people are not going to see this demo because most people can't get their hands on a PS5.
I think that's you release it as a PS5 only demo, so then all the streamers who have a PS5 are only streaming the best version of the game, right? You don't release a demo on the older platforms.
Well,
so
that's a real good point too.
They could have done a demo on the Series X, right? That would have been a good version also. So I don't know.
No, I'm sure Sony came in on that one. Probably.
And then they saw the trailer and they're like, well, maybe we could do Xbox too. Yeah. So I mean, that's cool. We got that announcement, and then really, what else did we get that we were remotely interested in?
The pixel perfect Final Fantasy ports.
Oh, the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 coming to mobile. Aren't those games those games are already on mobile, except they have horrific artwork for Final Fantasy 6 and 5. So now we're getting new versions on Steam and mobile for that, which is kind of crappy. We would have preferred those on Switch, but I mean, I guess it's kind of cool, but they didn't really show too much of that. So, and then we got
I'm looking at the screenshots, and it looks like the screenshots in the back when they're doing the trailer for Pixel Perfect are like the HD remastered versions.
Oh god. Okay, Final Fantasy. What's the official title of that trailer? Is it Final Fantasy 1 through 6?
Pixel Remaster. I can link the
well, here, let me just
the chat here.
I got it right here. No.
Trailer for it in there.
I think if you go to Square Enix's YouTube page,
they actually there's
they've uploaded every individual trailer that we saw.
So
that's what I was. Okay, so
it's called Pixel Remaster.
I got the link up too in the chat.
Okay, there we go. I got it. Okay, so we got this trailer coming up here for this. Okay, so it starts off with Final Fantasy 1 on the NES. They show some artwork for Final Fantasy Origins on the PS1, and this is Final Fantasy 6. Okay, here we go.
It's the HD remasters in there.
Why are you?
I would figure the original NES and SNES ones would be a tough sell.
So like around the 17, 18 second mark, you see Cecil on the kind of the bottom of the screen, his sprite. That looks fairly faithful, I would say.
Look at the Final Fantasy one on the top right. It's like the NES sprites remastered.
Yeah.
Like that's not any version that we've gotten before Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
Right. Also, FF2 Furion, you can see him. I don't think.
So I'm at the 17-second mark, and I'm looking in the bottom right-hand corner, and I don't. Okay, like it doesn't look very good.
It's same for Final Fantasy 4. Look at 4. It's the original sprites, but they're remastered.
Mm-hmm.
Like not their like modern counterparts.
Looks like there's some kind of fast forward feature also. So I think like honestly, Final Fantasy 1 looks good. Final Fantasy 1 through 3, those look like good ports. I might actually play those. I've been playing the PSP version of Final Fantasy 1 a little bit every night in preparation for that Team Ninja game, just because I was getting excited about it. And so I could see me playing the Final Fantasy 1 through 3 versions of this, but I got to be honest, I'm not that excited about these other versions.
It depends on like the price as well. Do you get all of them in like a single package, or?
Hell no.
I think
the only one I didn't see was 5 and 6.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing with those.
The most important ones.
Yeah, they're like
Because those are the ones they screwed up the most.
they showed us some concept art. That's it.
Now, if they treated it like they did these other ones, 5 and 6, then I think we are in for a treat.
Yeah, because that would be better than what we have currently.
They're also gonna. They also look like they're gonna have a widescreen support if you pay close attention, because like they've the menu doesn't cover the entire screen, and then you can see like how it kind of goes out. So this is probably gonna have widescreen support, isn't it?
Well, it's gonna be on Steam and mobile, but I still think it's a crime they're not putting this on freaking Switch.
It's probably they're gonna put it on the Switch eventually. Just wait for it.
Oh, I hope so. I'll play these on my phone regardless. They look well done. This is kind of like the HD remasters people just wanted. They just wanted just more high def of the same thing.
Yeah. So I'm not. I gotta be honest. I'm not a fan of these Final Fantasy 4 sprites either. Like, I don't think they look very good, but the environments look good. Anyways, that's where I'm at with that. So
and it looks like their original combat too. It's like the newer Final Fantasy ones use an MP, like a traditional MP system, but it looks like from the menu systems they're going back to like exactly how they were when they first released. Like you're using
are you serious? So they're doing like a slot based, like you can
MP expense system.
I don't know how I feel about that.
With like the magic charges and everything.
Yeah. Okay, well that's kind of cool. I guess we're getting that. Like you guys said, like why isn't it coming to the Switch? Probably it will come eventually, maybe later in the year. They want us to buy it on mobile first, and then they'll sell it to us on Switch.
It just said coming soon.
So,
yeah.
So
soon could mean next week. Coming soon could mean 2023. Who knows?
And here I was sitting here hoping for like a Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns remaster. That's just
man. All the rumors were swirling about that. Can't believe they weren't.
They're not above it.
Dude, if they did like they gave the villain from Final Fantasy 13, they gave him like Bartantes. It was like Bartantes' origin. You found out how he got that little cap.
Yeah.
Dude, I would be all in on that.
You should have Final Fantasy 13-4. That's exactly what we need now.
Dude, I'm in. Bring it. It got so ridiculous at the end of 3. Why not? So, anyway, like, so I thought, like, but I definitely did think we were going to get some kind of 7 remake part 2, or maybe some additional 7 remake stuff. You know, Yoshi P said Final Fantasy 16, that 2021 was going to be the year we're going to learn a lot more. And remember last year when 16 was announced and Jason Schreier tweeted out that 16 was going to be out sooner than people thought. Like people are like, oh crap, it's coming out the holiday of freaking 2021. And
I think
and I think it's pretty clear now that's not going to happen. Because otherwise we would have been seeing gameplay. We would have been seeing like a lot more from 16 as of right now. So I'm just surprised they didn't show even like maybe like a 30-second trailer of 16, anything else. Because they showed us 4.5 minutes before. They couldn't show us 30 more seconds.
Yoshi P did say later half of 2021, so it could be probably a Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, so we'll have to look forward to that.
They can't show us anything from Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, right? Because it's going to be a surprise,
Right.
They can't ruin the surprise.
Yeah.
Well, that last one was quite surprising.
They already kind of gave us the start of Part 2 and Integrate.
Yeah.
So overall, not the most exciting Square-Enix presentation. A little bit weird, to be honest. I think I expected a lot more. I will give it credit, though, in the sense that it was only 40 minutes. Although I'm also going to subtract a credit by the fact that the first 18 minutes was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Which defeats the shortness factor.
They should have wrapped that up in like 10 minutes at the very most, right? Like on the high end.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy is way too long. They showed us like an entire stage. And no one was really looking forward to this. Like the difference between this and the FF7 remaster, when they showed the bombing mission, people for years have been clamoring for gameplay footage of Final Fantasy VII. So it was appropriate to bring it to light and show at least the bombing mission that people have been waiting for years. And something like this, I can't imagine anyone getting but so excited for this game. It looks good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It looks like a fun game. It looks like it's well developed. It's just, I just don't think the people who are watching the stream just really care about this game. Like, you kind of just need to put the Eidos Montreal in their own stream, or you kind of need to mix them into the Xbox and PlayStation conferences, because I think this is you need to know your audience type of deal. Who is watching the stream? Like, who's the majority? Are they Eidos Montreal fans? Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't get why they would want to show like an entire stage and all those interviews and stuff like that for that game, and then show 30 seconds of the new Final Fantasy game at the end. They could have shown an entire stage for that game, I hope, right?
Yeah.
Like they could have had some interviews for that. It just feels very strange to take the one game that probably most of the people tuning into the stream would have wanted to see more of, and then give it like a 30-second slot, and then spend 10 plus minutes on a game that probably nobody tuned in for.
And then Final Fantasy Origin, I mean, it seemed to imply that, because the original rumor was that this was either going to be a complete Final Fantasy 1 remake with Neo style, or it was going to be a story adjacent to Final Fantasy 1. So do y'all think these are like the new Light Warriors, like another like generation of Light Warriors, and they're having to fight Garland in like a new timeline? Or do you think this is literally a remake of Final Fantasy 1?
I think it's a reimagining. That's kind of what it feels like to me, since they chose to start out with like the
same beginning of Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
Like.
If it's a reimagining, they better have some ghosts in there, right, to explain how it's changed.
Did they have the same plot ghosts from Final Fantasy 1 or Final Fantasy remake?
They just fly in and they're here now. Yeah.
And they're also in the Pixel Remaster versions as well. That would be like that would kill me. Open the game.
They're all flying around there.
Flip. Yeah, like the little pixel versions of them show up. That I would buy the Pixel Remaster versions if that were the case. I would actually love to see it, what they've done with that.
Every like problematic plot point, they just kind of show up and kind of.
What's the character in 6 that tries to kill herself again?
Celeste.
Yeah, that's right. She's just like just as she's dying, or you have the ghost just no.
They like keep her underwater or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jumps and says like, "No, I was okay. I was okay. I was okay." Oh.
Yeah, but I think Hian's right. The Final Fantasy Origin, why wouldn't you have like even just like a few snippets of like Nojima or Nomura or somebody from the Team Ninja development game like explaining like what's their goal with this game, rather than just kind of showing the gameplay and leaving everybody in the dark like what is this?
This is what should have been a 10-minute demo.
Well, and
Exactly.
and they didn't honestly they didn't really spend a lot of time telling people that this was Final Fantasy 1 reimagined. They didn't.
No.
The only people that knew that were people that were already expecting it, and then they're able to see Garland and they were able to see Light Warriors and they're able to like kind of piece it together. But I think a lot of people that watched this that didn't know about all that, they just watched it and they were like, "Oh, this is like some random Final Fantasy spinoff." And I thought you would think like they would kind of talk about like the legacy of Final Fantasy came out in the late 80s. Like it spawned this entire series. Now we're remaking it and like kind of like go through that process of like explaining like how they like went through like the pixel art, the tiny little castle, and they had to rebuild it and like the different things they did, but they didn't even like kind of like even say it was Final Fantasy 1 related, which
Also,
is kind of new.
There were actually 4 characters. I was going back through my head right now, but there's the black dude with the dreads, right? And then there's the Prompto guy with a pink or purple hair. Then there's the Sid knockoff with a sword, and then there's a dragoon with a spear and like a headmask or something. So there are 4 characters.
Are you sure they're not using different weapons?
I'm pretty sure based on if we can go back and like look over it, but I'm pretty sure there are 4 distinct characters. They don't share like the screen together in any of the cutscenes. So
okay.
So I don't know what's up with that, but it might be that, as I said, like maybe you can make your own character, right? And then they have like pre-recorded dialogue for them, and you could do some basic.
Well, if you can make your own character, that would be very in keeping with the original, which I would.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Oh, you're right. I'm looking at the Dragoon right now, and he doesn't look like he's not wearing the same stuff as the other characters.
Yeah,
unless they get like complete costume look change.
Because the characters look like wonky in that kind of self-generated kind of way, right? If you get my drift, like I don't feel as if like you would have a Prompto knockoff with like purple hair. This is just like this is just not going to be a main character in any Final Fantasy game. So like So I wonder if that's the case. You just make your own character, and then they have like you can tweak your voice pitch a little bit or something like that. But they will have pre-recorded lines.
Well, I'm trying to think of like how you pay tribute, right? So in Final Fantasy 9, Garnet would wear like the white robe, right, from Final Fantasy 1 through 3 of the White Mage, and it was kind of altered, but you could tell like it was a similar style. And I am surprised that they don't have more of those like Easter egg type things with the character models where you can kind of see like, oh, okay, that's kind of like a modified red mage outfit or something like that. It's very different.
I suppose it would be cool if they start off kind of look like generic looking, but then your equipment you get kind of pays homage to those original designs. Yeah. Maybe
you don't get like the epic like white mage kind of, I don't know, like a epic armor until you've grinded for 40 hours, right?
Then you finally get a white robe.
Yeah, but they're probably going to do something like, because it's Nomura, right? So it's not just going to be a white robe. It's going to have like massive like silver shoulder pads and some weird fucking face guard with spikes and shit and chains everywhere.
Yeah, throw them some unnecessary belts like on the arms.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a belt dress. It's going to be like white with like tons of belts.
I'm just looking at more. Maybe they are going the Neo route where they let you, at least in Neo 2, they let you customize your character, and then your character interacts in the game. Maybe the other 2 characters are just like set characters for the game, and then your main character is just the one who you get to customize. So maybe they're showing off different jobs in the game. One that was like Paladin, the one in the picture is and the preview is probably like warrior of some type or Dark Knight. And
I think the prompt guy is probably like a thief, right? If I look at his outfit, I felt as if like he had a dagger or something in it.
yeah, maybe.
He's got a bunch of knives.
Yeah, so he's of course the Prompto knockoff is going to be a thief. That's
just our main hero. He's not wearing any armor at all, right?
He's not very expressive either. I mean, I know it's a Square-Enix game, but his face does look a little custom made.
He looks like a cross between like Core and like the guy I would buy materia from in 7 Remake. I mean, it's a bit generic, but
yeah, these guys come straight out of 15.
Yeah,
he's a relative Roach. They're friends. They go dirt bike riding together in the weekends.
He's the older brother. Yeah. I don't know.
Bro, hand me the Budweiser. Right.
Dude, there's a lot of blood in this too. This has got to be rated M.
It's not blood.
It's rated N for Nomura.
Crazy. Well, when it comes out, it's going to be green blood. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's not going to come out because Nomura's not going to get any resources for it, and 2 or 3 years are going to pass by, and they're going to be like, "Oh, we don't have a Final Fantasy 17. Let's make this 17."
Oh, by the way, you're right. He is a thief. If you look around the 1 minute 10 mark, you'll see like your character in a completely different costume, and you see the 2 supporting characters in the trailer helping you.
Okay.
I'm going up to the 1 minute 10 mark.
There are some, I'm clicking around here and seeing some sources saying that the demo will be available on June 24th. I don't know how accurate that is though, but.
Get your PlayStation 5s ready. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, you could play the demo. You got a PlayStation 5, right?
Yes.
And you gotta check this out.
One of the lucky few.
I'll check this out. I don't have any plans to play the Yuffie DLC until there's like a sale on it. I think $20 is too much for like 2-3 hours of game. So I'm waiting on that. Maybe it's for $10 or something. I might look at it, but
right.
But yeah, I definitely want to check this out at the least. I want to see how it feels, how it plays. Maybe it'll answer more questions than what we got in the trailer. Because if Square Enix has accomplished anything today, it's being super vague on everything. Why can't you just take an extra 30 seconds to explain or show some showcase of what the new pixel perfect Final Fantasies look like instead of zooming through background pictures and such? Like, can you not do that? And then this one, can't you just say, customize your own Warrior of Light and go in and enter the Strangers of Paradise game and make your way to Garland or something like that?
But that would require taking time away from that very important Heroes, the Galaxy game presentation, right? You can't do that because that's...
Yeah, I mean, that was imperative that they showed me 18 minutes of that. And they really needed to show me I could buy, the Ultra Galactic Deluxe Edition. Like that would be the version that I would want to buy, because that 18 minutes was not wasteful to my life. But like, it's just like this was, I know they can't have like a great presentation every year, but I just wonder if, number one, it was kind of crappy that, Final Fantasy Origin, Strangers in Paradise leaked out. Because I wonder if this would have been like a bigger thing with us if we didn't kind of have like an inkling that it was happening.
If it wasn't leaked, yeah.
Yeah, and this was like the final thing they showed, and we're like, oh crap, that's Garland, and like it would have been kind of cool. But
the surprise factor is lost now.
Yeah, so like the biggest announcement for us was already leaked. But it's just, I would have thought there would have been low hanging fruit that they could easily have announced, such as even, the Final Fantasy games being ported to the PlayStation 5. That's going to happen. Like,
They didn't even try to advertise 14 in there. Be like, play the PS5 version.
Yeah.
Or whatnot. That's like easy advertisement right there. It's like now you can upgrade your PS4 to PS5 for free. It's like they didn't even put that in there. It's like they needed to make sure that 18 minutes of Guardian of the Galaxies was in there.
No, this is probably not like a popular opinion, and most people have totally forgotten about it, I think. But on like the Final Fantasy 1 thing, I thought Mobius was supposed to be a kind of remake of Final Fantasy 1, wasn't it?
It was. It was a reimagining of Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to think about, because I think that somewhere within all the mobile shenanigans, there was a somewhat decent game and a decent story there with Mobius. So why couldn't they just kind of streamline that game, remove all the mobile crap, and make like an offline version of that? So at least they have the story preserved, right? And it doesn't look half bad either, right? So
yeah,
it feels as if they could have done that.
I was a little confused by that too, because the first thing I thought in my mind was, wait, there's already Mobius. Now, granted, Mobius is shut down. You can't play it anymore. What I mean.
Exactly. So they should make an offline version of it.
So I was thinking, hey, make a like you just said, an offline game. Make it like a action adventure type deal. Maybe get some inspiration from it, because there was good story elements in it. Now, granted, you had to go through tons and tons and tons and tons of mobile crap to get to it, but when you did get story, it was fascinating.
Yeah, I think that maybe they're looking at it at that particular instance, and they're thinking, okay, if we just port it without all the mobile crap in it, all the mobile transactions, maybe people are not going to play our mobile games in the future. They'll just be like, oh, I'm just going to wait.
Yeah, that's offline version. Yeah, which is sad.
I mean, there is a strong lesson, especially in Square-Enix ones recently, is don't invest heavily money-wise into any of these games, because they shut down fast.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing if they keep that thing going up for years and years and years and updating, but they throw it out there, 3 years, gone.
So that's going to be really interesting when it comes to Final Fantasy VII. What's his face? The
first soldier.
That too, but not that one. The other one.
Oh, Ever Crisis, right?
Because Ever Crisis is going to be free to play and in-game microtransaction, which means that it's going to be a live service. Which means, is that also going to just disappear if people stop playing it?
I think it's more like a Telltale game, where they have them listed and you just buy each chapter individually, then you play those chapters.
I would hope that would be true, like for the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. But that's not, like I read in some interviews, it's going to have gacha elements, right? And so, like the thing that I'm worried about is that the stuff that they showed us, right? That's kind of like, that's the nice parts of the game. But I have a really strong feeling that you're probably either going to pull like characters or weapons from like a gacha thing, and then the combat is actually totally divorced from kind of what you see on the screen. So you run around with Cloud, and then the fight opens, and then you have your fully decked out like gacha super team. I have 3 different versions of Aeriths fighting at the same time, right? And they all have like, I don't know, 5-star super staffs or whatever the fuck, right? That's probably what they're going to do with that game. And so
let me ask you though, the way Ever Crisis looked, let's take the original FF7 one that we saw in the preview. If they just released a Final Fantasy VII remake that was in that art style and had the traditional combat, would that have been a suitable remake for you?
That's hard to say, because it's still gonna kind of fall down to the execution of that, right? So I looked at that stuff, and ultimately for me, it's still in kind of a kind of odd aesthetic. I looked at the character portraits, and they're in a kind of modern Nomura style instead of in like the classical Final Fantasy VII style, right? Yeah, and the in-game battle graphics are still kind of like the quasi-realistic look of the remake. And ultimately, like I've said before, sort of the Final Fantasy VII that I fell in love with was very much with the identity of that game as a kind of 3D representation of Japanese anime of the era, right? So when I look at Final Fantasy VII, what I see is basically the character art, right? That's kind of what those 3D models and battle and stuff like that represent for me. So I didn't like Advent Children. I didn't like, the aesthetic of like Crisis Core, Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, and how they kind of represent that world in 3D. It just doesn't represent Final Fantasy VII's world for me, right? So if they were going to remake Final Fantasy VII in a way that I would like it to look like, it would probably have to, almost just look like the game just looks like now, right? Except with in higher definition, basically, right? I want Cloud in like a bright purple jumpsuit, right? with like the sharp angular eyes and the spiky crazy looking Goku hair, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah.
That particular with Ever Crisis, like I am interested in that in the sense that they are going to be doing the Before Crisis storyline, which is something that I haven't really experienced. Sure. So that's cool. I'm interested how they're going to make the Final Fantasy, like the movie, right? They're going to make a video game version of that, Advent Children, which is really cool. I want to see how that's going to work. But when I look at like the original game, that art style is just not it. Like that's not
character models, right?
Yeah, it's just overall, I think it looks kind of cheap, and it's not like it goes back to what I said. Square is able to take feedback from fans and apply it in the most asinine way possible, which is like that's like, how did you get that out of what I wanted? Because that's not what I asked at all. It's like they're actively trying to do something different instead of just, because if they could have just taken the original game, gave us a better localization for people, us English reading people, and then also kind of did the models up a little bit better, made a little bit better facial features, that type of thing, cleaned it up a little bit, redid the backgrounds, or, maybe AI upscale those and stuff like that. And I would have been great. You even could have put like a bonus dungeon in there or something. I don't care. That would have been tremendous. Yeah. But to make it like this, like chapter based, like Microsoft Paint looking thing, and I don't like that. And it's very weird that they're monetizing it. It's just not. They need to get their head out of their ass.
It's also fascinating that the intent of Ever Crisis is to catch you up to Final Fantasy VII Remake, when they were all adamant about being, we're not taking the compilation into account when doing the remake, and now it's like we release the whole compilation in Ever Crisis, so you can catch up, so you can play FF7 Remake, and you'll understand maybe 15% of what the hell's going on.
It's also fascinating to me how Square-Enix still haven't learned how to create artistically kind of cohesive looking games, because this goes back to, when they released the Chrono Trigger remaster, right? And the kind of the UI elements don't mesh with the game at all. And that's kind of how I felt about Ever Crisis 2, because you had the Dissidia style portraits of the characters, and the chibi style characters the 3D models are really kind of round and bubbly and cutesy. Yeah. But then
the pocket edition of 15.
Yeah, or even more cutesy, I'd argue, almost, because like the 15 pocket style editions are kind of weird, right? They're a bit freaky. These characters are just kind of cute, right? But then you get into battles, and now it's the hyper-realistic remake models running around, right? And in the original game, right? They went from chibis to bigger characters, but they still fundamentally had kind of like the same facial texture, right? And sort of they just it's kind of the same principle with the models. They just have more like links, right? Instead of the Popeye Junction kind of thing going on, where there's like two big blobs attached there. Now there are 5 blobs for an arm instead, right? So but it's still color coded the same way and stuff like that. So it feels cohesive, right, from one model to the next model. Like you can tell, like this model turned into this model. There's like no overlap whatsoever between the chibi models in Ever Crisis and the battle models. They're just like existing in completely two different universes, and it just. And then, as I said, you have the weird character models, not the models, but the portraits as well. It's just like,
yeah, those portraits do not match what they're doing artistically in the game at all.
At all, yeah. So it's just confusing to me. It's like Square Enix has a bunch of people making these games, and it's like they're all sat in different rooms and they don't communicate, and they make assets, and then everybody comes out to like the dining table after work, and they're like, "Look at what I made," and they just slap it all together, right?
So
like,
they sit down for lunch, and the battle director is like, "Okay, so what did you do?" And they're like, "I created these chibi models for the overworld." And then he's just looking at his hyper realistic models for the battle, and he's like, "Oh, shit!" Right? Like,
it's like those kidnappers who are making ransom notes where they have to cut out the letters from different pieces of newspaper and then put it together with glue, right?
It's kind of baffling because then you have a Legend of Mana remaster, which is coming out soon and is like super faithful to the original game. Like they redid all the backgrounds for the game.
Is that a separate? I wonder if that's like a separate company then, if they outsource the remaster of the Mana.
Yeah, or maybe there's just like a small team working on it, and so they're all, aligned. Like you're saying, like it feels like the Ever Crisis team is not aligned on a single goal.
That's interesting because I thought if they threw out like FF7 and 8's assets, I would have thought they would have thrown out Legend of Manos for sure.
Yeah, of all the games to get a faithful remaster.
Like Legend of Mana is the first game they've like faithfully redone the backgrounds like to an HD scale.
Yeah, and like there's some articles out comparing them, and it's like very meticulously detailed. Like they made sure like a bucket like half full of water just like on the side of the road is still there and is still half full of water and still casting like the same shadow, on the ground, so it's like they must have scanned those original backgrounds and just, touched them up a little bit, and that's kind of what everybody wants for the FF7 through 9, is just the bring up the quality of the backgrounds and release the games as they were.
And here's the thing, though. I think that they look at certain games and they think, okay, well, that's not going to make that much money. And so there's not a lot of oversight over it. And so they're allowed to kind of do what they want with the remaster. And it's actually better. But with the Final Fantasy games, when they remaster those with like Final Fantasy VIII, they're just like, no, like cheapest possible port, because we know we're going to make a lot of money off that, because that 8 remaster didn't even have analog movement like the PlayStation 1 version had. I mean, there was like character NPCs that were baked into the background that they didn't even fix. I mean, it's playable, but it's not.
Granted.
It's just, anyways. So I just think that there's like a little bit more focus, and unfortunately that.
But then they upscaled the character models. Yeah, and it's like they're only concerned with like the most apparent.
That's what I'm saying. It's
thing
like
that they can show in a trailer,
trying to like crunch every dollar possible out of this because they know that will make money. Whereas the other stuff, they kind of just like they're not focused on it. Like the Legend of Mana, like whatever, like that's going to sell, but that's not going to make tons of money. So we're just not going to put as much oversight over that. I'm guessing here, but I think that's what happens, and so. It is what it is.
It's good. It's good to know that Square Enix are preserving the WADA spirit, right?
Yeah. And it takes them, dude, it took them 3 years to fix like bugs like in their ports too. It was becoming such a big issue on social media. They started tweeting out that they created a whole new division in Square Enix just to fix bugs that are in their ports. But I mean, we're talking like bugs from the Final Fantasy X remaster where it had been in there for like 4 years. Or there was a Final Fantasy VII bug with the music not playing. Like you would finish a battle and the music would, it wouldn't loop, or it would loop from the
It
beginning.
wouldn't. Yeah, it would start from scratch.
Yeah, it took them like 2 years to fix that, and so it's just they don't put a lot of effort into like their big selling ports for whatever reason. But anyways,
That actually drives me insane. I was playing Final Fantasy 2 on PSP, and that has like the same thing. Every time you get into battle on the overworld and you get back out again, it starts over from the beginning. And I had never experienced anything like that. But I discovered that actually drives me insane. So that's horrible if they didn't fix that.
You got to turn off the sound, right?
yeah, and that's pretty bad if that's because Final Fantasy 2 is quite a frustrating game. So, so that's that's only adding into the problem, throwing gasoline on the fire there. So
oh man, I can just imagine navigating a dungeon in Final Fantasy 2, just hearing the beginning of the song each and every time, and between the random battles that happen way too frequently in that game, it's that'll drive a person nuts easily.
Yeah, for sure. So on E3 though, I mean,
is that all they have? Is that all they have for Square Enix?
So I'm wondering if maybe we might get something additional, like a Nintendo presentation or something like that.
We do have Nintendo on the 15th at 12 Eastern, I think.
Because if you think about it, they might have an announcement or two that's exclusive for that. Maybe we might get those Final Fantasy 1 through 6 games. Maybe Final Fantasy 6 and 5. There might be, because we didn't see the artwork for that, right? So maybe there's something additional with that. Maybe those will be HD 2D remakes. After watching this presentation, I'm not holding my hopes out because that could have been like 8 minutes, but it's possible because they didn't show the artwork that there's something unique they're doing with that, and maybe that will be at like a Nintendo presentation that.
Well, here's the thing: they didn't even list PS4 or PlayStation or Xbox. It was Steam and mobile.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's easier to port a mobile game to Steam than it is to consoles.
Probably.
So.
And the hardware, that's a hardware problem, right? I don't think PlayStation 5 can run.
I don't think PlayStation 5 can run Final Fantasy 1. I mean, I don't think the original NES. I mean, that machine was a beast. Anyways, I don't think I don't think for these games it's a problem to port them. I think it's.
I swear that if these games lag on anything, no.
Oh, please don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
Yeah,
how jarring.
Be like, it has like massive frame drops and stuff.
You're playing Final Fantasy 1 on the PlayStation 5, and it's like the sprites start like
screen in between the battles. the console with no load screens, it's got like a 4-second load screen or something.
But they fucked that up with Final Fantasy 6, right, on the PlayStation. So
it's actually slower than the SNES. Yeah.
It could happen.
It's true.
Square-Enix, about that. You never know.
Yeah. They're like, oh, this new game console, we're gonna make a worse version of the game mechanically. So
wow. Yeah, anyways, I'm looking through nothing Final Fantasy 5 or 6 I can see.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking now that I'm thinking about this is that there's something special about that because they didn't show us the artwork. And dude, if they're doing a 2D HD remake of Dragon Quest 3, they're talking about doing that with the Final Fantasy games. And even though I thought that they would wait till the very end to do that with Final Fantasy 6, they would do Final Fantasy 6 last in that style. Maybe they could be. Maybe that'll be something that comes to mobile and maybe also Switch.
Okay, so I see at least a sprite of Terra at lock if you look at 20 seconds into
God damn it, Eric.
Pixel preview. I'm just saying, I reviewed it.
It's not 2D HD? Well, it's called Pixel Perfect, so it's not going to be.
It looks more like their original ones, except the contrast looks brighter.
All right, but it looks just so it's not the. I'm trying to pull it up, so it's not the.
It's not the MS Paint version.
Woo! All right, that's an improvement.
So It doesn't show them in game, but it does show their sprites.
I'm gonna go to this Guardians of the Galaxy trailer. I want to see how many downvotes this has.
Also,
lower.
real quick,
50% ratio.
Going back to Final Fantasy Origin, Stranger of Paradise. I said earlier the demo was coming out on the 24th. That is not correct. It's actually available very soon, sometime today, and that it's playable until the 24th.
Oh, come on. I just got Ratchet and Clank.
They're giving people like a 10-day window to try it,
and give feedback.
14th through the 24th. Yeah. And they opened an official Twitter account, and they have a quote from Tetsuya Nomura. It's nothing special. It's a very generic quote. It says, "The announcement may have come as a surprise to you. Much of it is still shrouded in mystery. Nonetheless, this is an action game, so I suggest you play it to see what it's like. The trial version will be released shortly for a limited time. I hope you enjoy it." That's it.
Shrouded in mystery. Those are
mystery.
Favorite words.
Very important. Mystery. Yeah.
Basically, we don't know what we're doing beyond this demo.
They haven't mapped it out yet.
Well, I mean, they have a basic framework with Final Fantasy 1. That's
very basic. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be like a scene where these three guys go to Corneria?
But this is Nomura and Nojima, right? So they're going to be able to take this really basic framework and they're going to make it super complicated, right? You have no idea. It's going to be so complicated.
If you think about it, Final Fantasy 1's original story is a little complicated in itself. Now you got Nomura involved with it.
It's like when you defeat Garland, he takes off his helmet. It's like goulash. And it's goofy underneath.
And then it just closes out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or if it's something, I mean, it could be the Kingdom Hearts Noctis or something like that. That would just.
Yeah. Verum Rex.
Yeah. Verum Rex. So I think that's it for E3. I mean, they have Babylon's Fall, which we said looked better than we thought, right? That looked kind of, we like the art aesthetic. Those character models are not fantastic.
Yeah. They might have had to, we were speculating maybe it was because it's a kind of a create your own character type of situation.
Yeah.
Did you guys see like the Bethesda stuff that happened like an hour or two ago before?
I saw they had a teaser trailer for their new game Starfield. It didn't have any gameplay, but they announced the release date is in November of 2022.
Yeah, there's the Outer Worlds 2.
Oh, okay.
So Starfield. What else?
There is Iota. I can't even pronounce it right. Iodian Chronicles is set for 2023. The spiritual successor to Suikoden. And they're going to come out with an action RPG spinoff that's going to come out sometime between the development.
I hate it when these Kickstarter projects do that because it always kind of it triggers those alarm bells.
Yeah,
it makes me think of.
I was telling Eric before the call, they probably have a lot of people contacting them and wanting to make sure, like, my money all went to the original project, right? That was announced. Like, I don't want to be paying, I don't want to be contributing to this spin-off game because the game you advertised is this Suikoden turn-based, classic RPG. I put my money towards that.
Then I remember Bloodstained did a similar thing with Curse of the Moon, but they went through Inti Creates to make that. They didn't. It wasn't in their development. They went to another company to make it. So I think it's more okay if like another company is making it.
Yeah, they should just come out and say, your money that you put in for the Kickstarter is all going towards the core project, and this other thing, like we're giving this other team, some of the assets we've created in order to make that other game, but but still like all of your money is going into what you were promised, not this other game.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a good idea, I think.
I'm reading online on Twitter just to see kind of what the temperature is of that Square Enix presentation. People are pissed, but
yeah, I expected.
I'm seeing people are saying that Babylon's Fall is now a live service.
It is. Yeah.
Oh.
I missed that part. That's terrible decision. Now I'm not checking it out. All right. So good job, Square Enix.
Yeah, no, my interest definitely dwindled here in that.
That is disappointing.
Square Enix they managed to consistently be behind the like curve on this with sort of the Fortnite clone and like live services. Like this is so 2015, people.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember they made a 2008 open world RPG in 2015 called Final Fantasy 15. So
Yeah.
they do tend to follow the trends a little late. So I'm sure,
Yeah. I remember too, when the console version of Dissidia NT came out, there was like a part of it that in the menu that was not open yet, but it was very clearly like for loot boxes or some kind of like you could pay to get like a box and then like open it and get like unlockable costumes or equipment or whatever. But they never turned it on because it came out shortly after the EA like Battlefield 2. They got hammered for their loot box design, like in the progression design. And so the City NT, they were just like, they decided never to turn the feature on, but they had it planned, So they definitely are like very much in tune with like all the AAA gaming trends, and trying to copy.
At least
those
it's not as
business
bad
models.
as Dead or Alive 6, where like you remember like in fighting games where if you just hit select, you'll just have like different colors for the fighter. Just distinguish between like player 1 and player 2.
Yeah.
Dead or Alive 6 charged for that.
Yeah.
They charged for like a different color hair, a different color of the same costume. They DLC microtransactioned everything they could possibly think of, or could legally get away with when releasing a title. And I mean, I'm just saying stuff could get much worse than that in terms of fighting games. But I think in terms of Dissidia NT, I think it was not the worst. For sure.
Yeah. A lot of games do that now. They, instead of giving you 20 colors for your character, they'll give you 5, right? And then the rest,
the remaining 15.
You gotta pay up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, guys, maybe next year.
I guess
You'll come back for Tokyo Game Show?
Tokyo Game Show, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, so that's I think we are going to get some Final Fantasy news at least at the Tokyo Game Show. I mean, we have to get some kind of Final Fantasy 16 update, but I feel just justified in my opinion now from last year, where when they showed Final Fantasy 16, I was looking at it and I thought, man, these like trees do not look quite like trees. Like some of the like textures are just not there, and like the outside shots were always on like the side of a mountain or in like a very foggy area, where I thought like, okay, it's like they're kind of containing what they're showing, like it wasn't finished. And so when everyone's like, oh, it's coming out in 2021, I was like, no way, this game is not anywhere close. And the fact that it has not been shown yet, I don't see the game being shown at Tokyo Game Show and then us having a release date 3 months later. I just don't see that happening. I think that we'll get like another more polished looking trailer that's actually running on a PlayStation console, and then maybe 2022, 2023 release window.
Yeah.
So
would all 4 of us agree that probably the best thing in that presentation was Final Fantasy Origin?
Yeah, for sure.
Probably. Yeah.
Dude, that
sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy intro was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
mean, like I said before, the game looks fine. It does look fun to an extent. I do like the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. So
I was joking.
yeah. Well, I know, but I'm saying to like people I know people like all over the internet are just negative over it. I don't think it's the game itself. I think it's just how much of the game was in the presentation.
But the game also looks kind of like basic though. right?
Yeah,
It's just, isn't it? It's basically just a reskin of the Marvel Avengers game with a bigger focus on story, right?
it's kind of what you expect out of a AAA game like this.
Well, what
Standard,
it is, yeah,
yeah.
it's effectively, hey, there's not a new movie out, but this is kind of like a close second, right?
Right.
Where you can kind of relive some of the characters and stuff like that. But like Hian's right. I mean, it was 18 minutes long, and they kept showing us the same type of gameplay loop where it would just be some people like in like a barren wasteland talking, right? And they would just show up with like 2 dialogue prompts, and then you just hit XXXXX square, for the battles, and that was effectively it. But there's probably some witty jokes in there. There's probably some cool cutscenes and stuff in there. And for people that really like Guardians of the Galaxy, that might be a fun ride. But that's not most of the people watching the show. So, and it's kind of crappy. You can spend so much money developing a game. Clearly, they didn't spend that much with this one, but you can spend a lot making a game, and then you can just make a bad marketing decision like they did here, where they showed 19 minutes of a 40-minute presentation, and you just created so much stigma around the game that didn't exist.
Yeah, kill its momentum right out the gate. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was just like
whereas
a minute and a half trailer and that was it, and people that were interested in it could go see a gameplay later, it would have been probably sold much better.
Yeah.
Maybe they did that because they didn't have anything else, right? Because they needed to have that time slot, and they needed to have this presentation has to be at least for like kind of 40 minutes ish to even be worth having, right? And none of other games are like presentable or whatever,
They didn't even show Forspoken, and Forspoken looks like it's more Western oriented than.
Yeah, but they might not have anything of substance to show for it yet, right?
Yeah. So,
and it might be too far away from release.
Well, and I wonder if part of the problem is because so far, like anything, whether it's the Summerfest presentation that was ungodly long, or any of the other E3 presentations that have shown, there hasn't been anything that was that exciting that's been revealed, or just presentational wise, it seems kind of like it wasn't fully thought through. And I wonder if some of these companies are just looking at it and they weren't quite sure if there was actually going to be an E3 presentation, and if there was going to be, if they were going to be involved with it, because they're probably looking at this like, is this thing happening?
If I can put my theory cap on, I think at this point they don't care. Many people don't care about E3 company wise anymore. A lot of people are taking the Nintendo route and just wanting to release information on their own terms instead of feeling like they have to dedicate getting tech demos out on June to show something off at E3. And I think they rather release at this point now release a tech demo of something when they're ready to show it, because we've had a lot of bad times. Ubisoft is probably the most guilty one of this, of showing something that's just not representative to the game at all when they show these previews. So I think it's a much healthier thing if you give the developers the ample time to make the tech demos, and look more closer to what the actual vision is, instead of being like, oh crap, we got 2 months to just put this thing together and try to show something for E3.
Ubisoft showed that Avatar game, didn't they? Right?
Oh, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was entirely pre-rendered, right?
I don't know. I haven't even watched it yet. I just know it exists.
Yeah, it looked like a pre-rendered trailer. It's not.
Probably is pre-rendered. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, anyways, I don't know. You guys have anything else you want to talk about, or you want to wrap this up, or what do you want to do?
We touched on a lot of things.
Yeah, I think we were fully expecting there to be something huge announced here.
Yeah.
and we didn't get that, so it's kind of a disappointment, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Kind of waiting for that Left Alive 2, and then they didn't drop it.
I just wanted a Dragon Quest 3 HD release date, but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, why
But
didn't they at least show that? They could have showed a release date for that. They could have shown that Dragon Quest X offline version that's currently Japanese only. You're telling me that they couldn't announce like a Western release of that?
I would love to see that.
It's text based, so it's not even. I don't even think it would be that hard. So, all in all, I think a bad showing from Square. To be honest, I don't think this was worth the hype.
Yeah,
And,
like we said, they don't understand their audience that is tuning into this kind of
well, they
E3 presentation.
Yeah, Square has to pay money, right, to show for this slot. It's not like they can do it for free. So they paid a lot of money to have their stuff here to show everyone. And so if a company's forking over money to show stuff and they're like, yeah, we'll be at E3 this year, that makes people think you're going to have something huge to announce. And so it's kind of their own fault, I think, when they don't have anything to announce, because it's like, why did you even have a presentation if that's all you were going to do is show us 18 minutes of Guardians of the Galaxy stuff and then Avengers stuff that nobody cares about? It's just, it was a poor move. So I think it would have been better if they just kind of did their own thing separately and kind of showed these kind of piecemeal. But maybe they were trying to, I don't know, get hype up for this Guardians game and maybe show people Avengers was still alive, the Avengers game, that they're trying to fix it. And I don't know.
They're taking a hit to set up a counter, right? Because
I don't think they think that
bring out the 4D chess.
I think they're worried about the next 12 months, and that's it. That's it. So, all right. Well, I guess you guys cool with us ending it here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. All right. Well, thank you everyone for checking us out. I don't know if you guys came on earlier, but sorry, we're having some technical issues at the beginning of the stream, but we'll try to work that out in the future. But we want to thank Hian for coming on and joining us. He got up at like, what, 4 o'clock in the morning?
Early time
to watch that. So we definitely do appreciate that. I know you're going to try to get some Z's in before starting the day, but do appreciate it. And hopefully we get something worth talking about announced over the next week or so. That would be exciting. So,
yeah.
But I guess
Cheerios.
I guess that'll do it. All right, guys. We'll catch y'all later.
Okay.
See you next time.
Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And also, check out our audio version. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and practically any podcatcher you can think of. Also, we have a fantastic media partner at rpgfan.com. Be sure to go check them out for your latest RPG reviews and news, as well as some other kick-ass podcasts with Rhythm Encounter, Retro Encounter, and Random Encounter. Go check them out. We'll see you next time.